Hey guys, we got a brand new video. We're going to take some weight and some junk off this sucker, so stick around. Okay guys, I just wanted to go over one thing. The last video we did the installation of this fairing. Turned out great. I liked it a lot. Pretty detailed video that we did to try and make it as understandable as possible. I just wanted to go over one other little thing in the beginning of this video, showing the LED light bulb that we switched out in there. Now I believe it's a 10,000 lumen bulb, and it's an H4. It goes in there just fine. Worked out really good. I had to make a small metal clip to hold it in because I don't have one for this particular light bulb housing. It uses a plastic, like a rotating locking ring, and so by making a simple metal clip out of an old spring that I had laying around, I was able to click it in there. It's real simple. Once you're in there, you'll see exactly what you need. But it's a drastic increase in light. I'll put a couple pictures here, probably at the end of this, just to show what it looks like. Okay guys, so what we're going to be doing today is taking a little bit of weight and some complication off of the bike that is no longer necessary when you run an aftermarket fuel tank. What you're seeing here is the charcoal canister. The lines run from the back there and down into the carburetor, and one of the lines also goes up to the fuel tank. On the factory fuel tank, there's a vent that's kind of up underneath, just above the carburetor. When you run an aftermarket tank, there's nowhere to connect that anyway. So basically this stuff is doing nothing if you put an aftermarket tank on the bike. So in my case, I'm going to be deleting this stuff because it's doing nothing anyway. It's a nice way to shed some weight and shed some complication off of the bike, and it's just basically not necessary there, you know. So we will get a couple little images here so you kind of get an overview of what we're doing. We're going to be removing the canister at the back, the hoses, and the little check valve that I will describe here shortly in the next segment. So please keep watching, and we've got some more stuff coming for you. Thanks. All right, so we're kind of getting in here. I'm going to show you just a quick teardown on this, but before I get started, I just wanted to show you my old pliers. I like this kind of stuff. You know, it's been around forever. These things were made in Jamestown, New York, in the United States. These are not Chinese garbage. They may have a little surface rust, but these suckers will be around probably a lot longer than I will. So anyway, first thing we got to do, pull a couple of hoses out. This is just basically the opposite breather side of this little charcoal tank, which basically just filled with activated charcoal, and it's basically catches the vapors. So we pull that off, get that out of the way. I like to save these little spring clips because these things are really handy. They work a lot better than a screw type hose clamp because they put constant pressure. So as the hose shrinks over time and stuff, these things keep the pressure on the hose. So they're pretty good for that kind of stuff. All right, so those are out of the way. A couple 10mm bolts on this thing. Make sure there's no back nut. We should be good there. Break these loose. Should be using my speed handle. I forgot to grab it. All right, so pull this guy off. 2 bolts, nice and simple. Now it's hanging. These guys we'll pull off. You just got to get them kind of loose. They've been on, this is a 2006, so they've been on here for a while. Nice and squeaky tight. Okay, so that right there, I'm gonna weigh all this stuff when we're done, but I'll bet you that's over a pound. That's probably pound and a half, something like that. So okay, so now we've got a couple of zip tie things here, the factory ones. You just lift these off and they come off. They're pretty cool. Little tab on it if you don't want to break it and cut it. You just lift up on the tab and it comes off. All right. Number 2. Get that off. We can pull the hoses out of the frame here. I'm going to reorient the camera so you guys can see what's going on here in the next little step. Okay, so now you got a little bit better angle. What we've got here is, it's called the rollover valve. Okay, so this is basically so that on it, like, it kind of takes the place of the drain tube, if you will, on a dirt bike. Okay, a typical dirt bike doesn't have a charcoal canister because they don't care if a little fuel spills out, right? So normally there would be a tube that comes off the factory vent in the gas tank and just drains down, right? It would drain down, or in the case of a dirt bike, it would go out on the handlebars, right up on the top, that little hose that you see. This didn't have that, so it had an internal drain vent on the factory fuel tank up inside, and this would have been connected to that on this other end. And now I have changed this to the Attribus tank, which, oops, get that out of there. That's where this used to connect to. And I plugged it. So we're going to pull this out. All right, there's a little bit more weight off of this thing. Every little bit counts on this puppy because she's heavy. She's a big old girl. All right, so now we've got this hose next. We will address that shortly. All right, the last piece of this little puzzle here is this line that's going up into, more or less, into the intake manifold. And what that does is it's kind of like what they call a vacuum line. So what that was doing, that was pulling air through that charcoal canister down and back in, trying to create a negative pressure so that the vapor doesn't escape, right? You're trying to pull it back through the engine to basically reburn any vapors that the charcoal canister couldn't catch. All right, so what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to cut this. There's 2 ways you can do it. You can get a nipple, make sure it's fuel, a fuel stable nipple, to cap that. I don't have one of those at the time, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this fuel line, I'm going to cut a little section of it off, and then we're going to put a bolt in there and put a clamp on it and call it good for now. It probably will last the rest of the life of the bike that way. But we'll do that next, and I will show you the finished result. Right, so it just so happens that the bolt that comes out of there, the little 10mm, is an absolute perfect fit for that hose. It fits nice and tight. It threads right in. Couldn't come up with a better plug right there. That's definitely more than good enough as far as a seal is concerned. So we've got our little setup. We're gonna squeeze it on there, back on the nipple on the carburetor. Get that clamp back just a little bit more so I can get it on. Get up there. There we go. All right, we got it. So there's that. We'll put our clamp, put our clamp all the way back up on it. And we're good to go. Now, one thing that I'm thinking about doing here is, I'll show you here just a little bit to the left, to the right. Okay, I think I'm going to take this off as well because it basically, it's too weak to possibly do any kind of support for the frame. I think it's just dead weight as far as I'm concerned. So we'll pull that off. It does give us one more, actually two more mounting points if we ever want to add anything in the future. So another few ounces. Get rid of that. All right, guys, I'm gonna break out my scale and just see how much we actually removed from here, just out of curiosity. We'll see what we've got as far as weight loss is concerned. Mostly, I was looking for some more space, you know what I mean? Because this is going to give me, I can now bring my new toolbox down all the way into here and make it really nice and give us some room. I'm hoping to be able to get a tube in there, some tire spoons, few other things, and then of course some hand tools and stuff like that, maybe some spare fuses and things like that. I'd like to get everything in there that I can, and I'm going to try and tie into those two, and probably this bolt hole as well to give it some strength, to try and keep it from you know, working its way off and breaking off in the future. So anyway, I hope that helped. There's not a lot of info on this. It's a real simple mod, but in my opinion, it's worthwhile. It definitely removes some weight, and it just gets some stuff out of your way when you're working on the bike. You're changing your air filter now. You don't have to worry about removing all that stuff and getting it out of your way. It's always a little more open. I hope you guys enjoyed that. We'll keep some little tips and stuff like this coming along during this build, as well as the big stuff. So you guys have a good one. Thank you very much. Thanks for watching. We really appreciate it. Hope everything is going well for you and your families. Thank you. All right. I know this isn't the most accurate way to do it, but there's all the hardware and the bracketry and stuff. And as near as I can tell, it's about 2.5 pounds. So it's pretty good. 2.5 pounds for really, once you know what you're doing, 5 minutes, maybe 7 minutes worth of work. I think that's well worth it.